Hey guys, it's hard to believe we're already at week 5. This is the week of May 11th through May 15th, and this week we are talking about our last element of art, which is texture. Texture is the way art feels to the touch or appears to feel. And there are two different kinds of texture. There is actual texture, which is tactile, which means that you could physically reach out and touch it and it would have a feeling such as smooth or bumpy or rough. Some artists who work with actual texture would be Jackson Pollock and Vincent van Gogh. Now, Jackson Pollock would splash and drip and splatter paint all over his canvas and then allow it to dry in big, thick lines and blobs. Vincent van Gogh painted with thick brush strokes that you could literally reach out and touch. Now, the other kind of texture is called visual texture. Visual texture is when an artist simulates texture by drawing or painting so realistically that you think that there is texture there. It almost seems like you could reach out and touch it, but it is just an illusion. It's just part of the drawing or the painting. Now, some examples of visual texture would be this painting by Salvador Dali, where you can look at the curtains and see how realistically they look, also the way the fabric hangs on the young woman's body. This painting of a diner called Ralph's Diner by Ralph Goings, who was a photorealistic painter. This is actually a painting, but it's painted so realistically, and he does such a good job creating the texture of the chrome and the texture of the ceiling and the texture of the diner seats that it almost looks like a photograph. And then this famous painting that you can actually see at the Art Institute of Chicago by artist Gustav Kalibati, and you can see the texture of the rain-soaked street and cobblestones. Now that we know a little bit more about texture, let's look at some texture around our own homes. So before we get into this week's art activity, I want you guys to just take a look around your apartments and your houses, your yards if you can safely go outside, and just look for different kinds of actual texture. So take a look at the walls, take a look at the shelves, take a look at the windows and see what you can find. What sort of textures do you see? What sort of textures do you feel? What sort of things could you collect that have different, unique textures? So take just a few minutes, go for a little walk, look around the house, and see how many different textures you can notice. Alright, so now that you've had a chance to discover some textures in your own home, let's get on with this week's project. So for this week's project, you're going to need a piece of blank paper. I'm just using a piece of printer paper. This works well because it's not too thick, and we're going to want a thinner paper for this project. You can do this with a pencil only, or you can do this with crayons. If you have crayons, you're probably going to want to use the side of the crayon, not the edge. So I'm actually using color sticks, and I'm just going to use the side. But if you have a crayon where you could take the paper off, you could do that too. So you're also going to need a variety of different objects that have interesting textures. Crumpled up aluminum foil, some plastic here. So look around your house for items that have interesting textures that you could use to make a rubbing. So you aren't going to damage the item itself, but what we're going to do is we're going to set the paper on top of the item and then press down with our crayon and try to create a rubbing to get the texture from that item. So try and find 6 different things that you can use to get rubbing from. Now once you're ready, you're going to take your piece of paper and we want to fold it into 6 boxes. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to fold it in half hot dog way. All right, long and skinny like a hot dog bun. So make sure your corners touch and fold it like that. Next, we are going to fold it not into halves, so we're not folding it in half, we're folding it into thirds. So you want to find about 1/3 of the way, doesn't have to be perfect, and then fold your paper down so that it looks like this. You should have 2 small rectangles on this side, 1 long rectangle on this side. When you open it up, it kind of looks like an L, okay? Then you're going to fold it one more time. If you did it correctly, when you open it up, you should have 6 boxes that are about the same size. So this might be a little tricky to demonstrate on the wall, but I'm going to give it a try. I've got my paper behind me, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my texture examples. I'm going to stick it behind the paper, and then I'm going to take the side of my color stick, and I'm just going to go back and forth like that. And you can see that the texture is showing up on the paper. Let's try a different one in a different color. So I take my orange color stick. I'm gonna try it with my aluminum foil this time. Put that under there. And then you see I get a slightly different texture. All right, so as you can see, I finished my texture rubbings. I used some different items from around the house and different colored color sticks, and I just did 6 different textures. Now you can use crayons and try to use 6 different colored crayons, or you could just do 1 crayon for all of them, or you could even just use a pencil if you don't have a crayon. But try to find 6 different unique textures and create 6 rubbings of actual textures from around your house. Then make sure that you take a picture of it and you turn in that picture in your Google Classroom assignment, or you email me that picture if you're using ClassDojo or Seesaw, and send me an email if you have any questions. I hope you enjoyed this week's project, and until next week, take care, guys. Bye.